Kara, this is Council
Good
Member
afternoon,
Adams,
everyone.
and
Welcome to the Tempe City Council and Tempe Development Review Commission joint meeting. Council meetings can be watched in real time via Cox Cable Channel 11 and at tempe.gov/tempe11. Members of the public may also attend the meeting virtually through Microsoft Teams. Item number 2 here is our presentation items. We've got a couple of things this afternoon. First up, starting with item 2A, Development Bonus Program, Options for Affordable Housing, and welcome everyone. So let's just see, I'll let you go, I'll just let you go here, and I'll step back and turn my microphone off.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Chairman, and commission members, my name is Jeff Tamulevich. I'm the Community Development Director. I just want to thank you for being here this afternoon. We have 2 agenda items we'll be presenting today, as you had stated. The first is a development bonus program, and this has with a focus on options for affordable housing. This is something that I know many of you have anticipated for some time now. And then we have a second item, which will be a brief presentation on state legislation updates, which we want you all to be aware of. I would like to introduce the team presenting today. Deputy Director of Planning, Ryan Levesque. Principal Planners, Michelle Dolke, Diana Kaminsky, and Jacob Payne. Before I pass this on to Ryan, I'd like to give you a brief summary of sort of how we've gotten here. The Affordable Housing Strategy Plan, thank you. The Affordable Housing Strategy Plan was actually initiated by the Urban Core Plan in 2019. The Affordable Housing Strategy has since helped establish the city's goals and objectives for improving the availability of housing for residents of different income levels and lays out strategies to achieve housing affordability. Just as a reference, the Tempe Urban Core Master Plan, the UCMP, was a community-driven vision for the future development of Tempe's downtown and urban core. The Urban Core Plan was intended to manage projections and development demands, growth projections, excuse me. The plan, which included the density bonus program, was developed through a public process, incorporating comments and feedbacks from residents, community groups, and stakeholders. There were obviously many challenges with this plan getting adopted at that time. Eventually, it was then tabled in 2021. Based on resident and council feedback, it was clear that the program, I guess, had overreached and was sort of lost focus. This is what led to it ultimately not getting approved. The General Plan 2050, another important milestone when it comes to housing in Tempe. This was a comprehensive 2-year process aimed at gaining community support to establish varying density levels throughout the city. The fact that the state legislature continues to apply more and more pressure onto municipalities to implement changes with housing and affordability. All this coupled with the fact that the cost of housing in Arizona has significantly increased, making it very difficult for homeowners or people to purchase homes and rent homes. This issue is driven by a combination of factors, one of which is a limited housing inventory, and that's sort of how we got to this point. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan Levesque to talk about the purpose of the presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. The topics that we intend to cover for this presentation are specifically a review of our affordable housing programs that are related to our community development department that we've closely working with housing elements. We'll define our development bonus program and those elements. We hope to help explain to you an approach of a simplified framework for Tempe, and then get into some review, response, input, and what that framework will look like for the next coming months as we develop an outreach effort for this effort. First, we'll have Michelle go over the current efforts underway.
Thank you, Ryan. Make sure everybody can hear me. There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan. Before we get started, just a reminder that inclusionary zoning is prohibited in Arizona. That's specifically out of Arizona Revised Statute, Section 9-461-16. And in that law, it prohibits a municipality from adopting any land use regulations, conditions of approval for development, or even fees that are based on providing housing for any particular group or class of people. But it does allow jurisdictions in Arizona to create incentives for bonus programs in order to increase the supply of affordable housing in those jurisdictions. Thank you, Ryan. So some of the current affordable housing efforts that we have in place now, the Hometown for All program, which probably all of you are aware of by now, it started in 2021. The purpose was to create a more sustainable funding stream for affordable housing units. The contributions are voluntary, primarily from developers, but some other entities as well. And then the Apache redevelopment area, this has been in effect for about 20 years. Ryan and I were trying to come down with an exact date, but about 20 years. And in this area along Apache Boulevard, the incentive is to develop and redevelop land along this corridor. And it offers up to 50% in development fee rebates for projects that provide 10 to 15% of workforce housing units in those areas. And then, of course, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that we are all aware of that the City Council approved late last year, which became in effect at the beginning of this year. It's been popular. We're excited to see the many people in the city that take advantage of this new opportunity for accessory dwelling units. And then the commercial adaptive reuse to multifamily effort. So this was out of House Bill 2297. And what that does is it mandates 10% of affordable units, up to 120% AMI. And actually, Ryan will be going into this project in more detail further along in our presentation. And then this map is very interesting. So it's looking at housing costs, the percentage of people's income that goes to housing throughout the city. And if you look specifically at the far right image where you see the darker blue and the more medium blue, so that represents the percent of renter households whose gross rent is 30% or more of their housing income. The darker blue in particular is interesting because in those areas, greater than 50% of those households spend 30% or more of their income on housing, with the lighter blue representing 25 to 50% of the renters in those areas spending 30% or more on household costs.
Thank you, Michelle.
You are welcome.
So last time we all met, Council and DRC, we kind of had some direction from you all. We discussed the framework of bringing back a development bonus program. Our focus was specifically on affordable housing, so narrowing the scope. Before, there were several different options to consider, and very concerning that we're picking low-hanging fruit to do development bonus programs, and so we wanted to focus on our most important effort, which was affordable housing. We wanted to simplify the process, simplify the methodology by which you were to attain those bonuses, and then develop a process and program for implementation. So today here, we're talking about that framework for building Tempe's bonus program. So what is a development bonus program? It's essentially a voluntary process intended to provide a public benefit, i.e. in the form of affordable housing. The developer or the applicant will receive additional residential density, floor space, building height, and provide beyond what the existing zoning of the property would allow. So the best example, we've used this exhibit several times before, but the basis of a development bonus program is to add additional project value to the site. So you've got the bonus building in height and density enables the developer to build and provide additional public benefits through exchange of additional height, additional density, and then also reduction in parking is another element we're evaluating. And with that, they're able to provide and dedicate affordable housing as part of the public benefit to the community for the request. Oops, I jumped 2 pages. So So the development bonus program, we are proposing that it'll be applied citywide. We're looking at it from objective of how it relates to our general plan. It will be a voluntary program intended for developers to choose whether or not this program is appropriate for them. They may still choose the other processes, but this one is specifically identified to increase and dedicate affordable housing. It will be incorporated in part of the zoning development code as an ordinance amendment. We'll have to go through that hearing process to amend the code. It's intended to be administrative in nature. This will save time, cost, and provide the developers certainty with the outcome as a result of the process. Developers still can utilize zoning map amendments or PADs, but this process is intended to be in line specifically with our general plan amendment process.
Really quickly, Ryan, Councilmember Hodge?
My question is, when you talk about the development of the bonus program, does that include like HUD renters? I mean, like people like with the voucher system, the owners of that, can they be a part of that too, or is that separate?
Yeah, it certainly could. Yeah, it doesn't exclude the developers from including other forms of affordable housing like vouchers.
Okay,
That's
well,
correct.
is that something that we can also relate? Because that would be, I think that would be a incentive for more people to do that when
Certainly.
we do our housing.
I would agree, yeah, thank you. So we took a simplified approach at using what the developers will have for affordable housing in exchange for the bonus. We want them to work off of building from their maximum allowed density of the zoning district, basically what we call our underlying zoning rights, and allow them additional density, additional height per the zoning district based on the projected general plan 2050. So our adopted development density map that was ratified by the voters this last year. The bonus program will calculate that gained density from the property based on the number of, and look at the number of affordable units based on that additional development, based on the area median income. So you might have different ranges of area median income that the developer wants to achieve. And by providing that area median income, they can provide an outcome of either 75%, 50%, or up to 25% of affordability in those units. So the one example above is if, say, you had 100 units and the project allows you to build additional 25 more units, 100 of those, or approximately 100 of those units would have to be, or approximately 20, those 25 additional gained units, 75% of those are the ones that will be gained affordable housing units. Then we've got 50% requirement for up to 51 to 65 AMI and up to 25% affordable units for the up to 50 range. Oops, it keeps on double skipping. So Jacob's here to go over specifically our general plan analysis as it relates to these density underlying zoning differences between the general plan and the zoning districts today.
Sorry, and I think there was one more slide back there that
Oh, there
you
is?
passed over.
Oh, there it is. The development bonus program, it's intended to dedicate a percentage of affordability. The applicants will receive greater density, heights, reductions in parking. They need to comply with this map here, which is our general plan 2050. And then the intent and outcome is to receive a dedicated 30 years of affordable housing within that specific project.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So as Ryan mentioned, the premise of this is that we look for sites where the underlying zoning still has some density to gain in the general plan map. So I'm going to show you kind of what the current catalog of properties in the city of Tempe that are eligible for a program based on the way that we're designing it. So this is just a look in total of what the breakdown of multifamily zoned properties in the city that have a general plan density that is higher than what their zoning allows for. So in total, we're looking at 7,154 properties that's spread out across the city, as I'll show in some exhibits on the upcoming slides. And it covers an area over 1,400 acres, which for context is a little over 2 square miles. So we're really making this a broad applicability where there's opportunities for affordable housing throughout the city through a program like this. So starting with R2, which is our lowest density multifamily zoning district, that allows for 10 units per acre. So those properties highlighted in blue on the map on the right, that shows where those R2 properties have a general plan density designation that is over 10 units per acre. So as you can see, for this particular zoning district, it's fairly spread out across the city. The next zoning district that we have is the R3R. This one's a little more uncommon, but there's 732 of those properties that would become eligible for this program. Again, a fair spread geographically across the city of Tempe. And then R3, this is the more common of the multifamily districts in the city of Tempe, with 2,868 individual properties noted as eligible for this program, covering an area of over 900 acres. So that's a little over 1 square mile of that total eligible property. And as you can see from the map, the distribution of where these are located is also fairly distributed. R4, this is one of our higher density multifamily districts in the city, up to 25 units per acre. So this is locating properties with that zoning that would have a general plan designation of higher than that. There's 444 of them, and as you can see, this one is more clustered along the Apache corridor and east of ASU's campus. And then our final multifamily district is R5. It's a little hard to see on this map. This is a newer zoning district that was created in 2005. So all the properties that have this were rezoned to it over the last 20 years. But those identified, there's 4 of them. It's a little difficult to see, but there's some north of the 202, some over on Rio Salado Parkway, some off of Southern Avenue, and then some on Kyrene Road.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. So the development bonus program is intended to allow the developer to agree to a signed covenant with the city that guarantees that affordability for 30 years. This affordability would either be assured through a development agreement or a covenant. We'll be working with our city attorney's office on the correct procedures to guarantee this affordability. We're also recommending working with our housing division or possibly a third party to help verify and identify those initial affordability levels or income ranges when evaluating for renters, buyers of the units. And then a potential annual self-reporting process that with audits, we can verify compliance with those requirements on an annual basis. This here is an example of a development standards chart and looking at what changes might impact those development standards from multifamily category. So you've got up above there the ranges of density zoning districts R2 all the way to R5 and their current density standards. What the bonus program provides is in compilation to the general plan a potential list of ranges. So R3, for example, which was the most widespread available density that could increase, there's areas of properties that either within up to 25, up to 45, or up to 65 dwellings per acre that would allow a density bonus from that R3 zoning district. Same with R4. Those ranges are from up to 25 to up to 45, 65, or 80, and then as well with the R5. In addition to this, we're also proposing a new zoning district, R6, that by right would allow 45 dwellings per acre. This zoning district does not exist in the city of Tempe today. It was a recommendation out of the outcome of the general plan that would be in line with that land use density category of up to 45. And then areas within the city, someone could also request this zoning district with a public hearing process and also seek additional affordable housing units within ranges of up to 65 or up to 90 through a public hearing process, as an example. In here, we provide some density bonus heights, 40 feet, 60 feet, and 80 feet, and then looking at some reductions in the standards. Typically, a 2-bedroom unit would allow 1 space per unit, as an example, to get reductions in those parking spaces. Of course, we do have other parking requirements in the city, transportation overlay district in the downtown, and those standards, if those reductions are less than these standards, the greatest reduction will apply in this case. Then over to our commercial zoning district standards. There's a couple zoning districts we are focused on to look at providing affordable housing options. That's within our CSS, Commercial Shopping Services District, and the PCC 1 Planned Commercial Neighborhood Zoning District. Both those density ranges we're looking to propose up to the maximum we found in our typical commercial centers that require use permit. That's up to 25 dwellings per acre. we're proposing considering that in the CSS and PCC1. The PCC1 zoning district, we're also proposing that there be a use permit process, since there were some big differences between the smaller planned commercial centers and the other PCC2 zones that already still have a use permit requirement in play. The height bonus would be respective to that potential density increase, as well as there would also be parking relief offered for those areas too. So we are also looking at what type of incentives, what is this going to offer in terms of reduction in costs? And Diane is here to kind of explain some of those scenario examples we have.
Thank you, Ryan. What this really is referring to is the people that are impacted by the decisions that we make with this program. On the left, you see the tan image, the tan text is about their income level and what they can afford. And the white box it's a lot of numbers, but it's really more about, from the development side, what is being given up in order to provide that affordable housing. So when the Tempe median household income is $77,643 per year annually, what does that mean for somebody who is only supposed to be providing up to 30% of their annual income for housing? At 80% AMI, that means $62,114. This program would allow us to provide affordable housing for up to 30 years, and this scenario is based on a relatively small development. Consider an infill development of about 20 units. So if there's 20 units being built, what you're looking at in the white chart there is the market rate rents for a studio, one-bedroom or two-bedroom unit. It also shows what the monthly and annual rent income is to the property owner. That's not the income of the tenant, it's the income of the property owner. When you take out the 80% AMI and providing that as affordable housing, it reduces the rent to the tenant, and then the bottom line shows you the differential in the annual income to the property owner. So this would enable people in certain job industries that make this level of area median income to afford housing in Tempe, but in order to get it at a 30%, they would be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. That's the household income and the type of product that would be available with the reduction in rent for this scenario one. When we get to scenario two, we're now looking at 65% AMI, or $50,467 annually. And what does that mean when they're paying 30% of their income annually? That's the ability to pay $15,000 a year for rent. So again, looking at the studio, one-bedroom and two-bedroom scenario, at 65 AMI rent, they would be able to afford a one- or two-bedroom unit within that range. And again, at the bottom, it shows you what the differential in income to the property owner would be in providing a portion of their units as affordable units. Scenario three is probably the most challenging. This is the individuals in our customer service, labor jobs, entry-level positions, housekeepers, even the top earners in restaurant service, and their annual income and providing housing, percent of their annual income would be $11,647 to provide them with a two-bedroom apartment through this program. And we'd be able to provide that in Tempe for 30 years through the development bonus program.
Great. Thank you, Diana. So our next steps and efforts on this process is to look to develop a preliminary draft and then public outreach. We'll have many stakeholders involved in this process. The plan is to start in the late summer of this year and then get feedback on that process steps, further developing some guidelines, probably show some scenario case examples, maybe of what a density project might look like compared to the existing zoning and then proposed zoning with those density bonuses, and then provide draft revisions, updates specifically to council. We'd like to come back to you all on a future work study session to get some feedback as to how that public input and outreach is going, and then get final direction on moving forward with the public hearing process for the ordinance, which will probably preclude at the end of the year and early 2026 process. With that, we open up for any input on this item at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Just a couple of quick things, and I'm going to go to Vice Mayor Garland. There are a number of things that I really like about this. First of all, I appreciate you talking about the fact that this is consistent with the general plan that was passed by voters last March. So for anyone watching at home or anyone sitting in the audience, they can know that off the top. Secondly, the notion that we're talking about freeing up an additional 1,400 plus acres in this city for increased density. As that general plan 2050 talked about, we are anticipating over the next roughly 30 years an additional 72,000 people who will probably relocate to the city of Tempe. And this is sort of in keeping with our perspective of trying to make sure that we have adequate housing, not just simply for the people who are here now, but for the people who are going to be moving here over the next 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years. So I like knowing that we've got over 1,417 specifically acres that can be then used to frankly build more density within our community and add much more in the way of new housing. I love the R6 designation that you're talking about as well, Ryan, from the standpoint of trying to find some additional parcels in this city where people will be able to build increased density by right without having to go through a lengthy sort of process in order to get those rights to do it. Because, I mean, look, this might be a little bit controversial, but sometimes we have challenges with this when we talk about trying to find ways to upzone certain areas or increase density. Many times people come forward and say, I don't want this. I don't want more people. I don't want more traffic. I'm concerned about congestion. And while I understand that for a lot of folks here who are longtime homeowners or longtime renters in the community, at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not just simply looking towards the present, but also looking very much towards the future. So if we're able to find ways to allow people who are in certain portions of the city to frankly build more by right without having to go through a potentially extensive, lengthy process, that's something that I'm very much in support of. I love the fact that you talked about the income verification as well, just to ensure, because that's one thing you also many times hear in the depths of social media, of people writing, well, I don't know what affordable housing means, and how do we know the people who are actually living in this affordable housing actually need the affordable housing? The fact of the matter is the income verification, I think, is another very important thing to tell folks who might not understand what affordable housing is or might not understand what area median income or AMI is, that the people who actually are getting this housing and the folks who we're talking about are folks who actually do have a demonstrated need and absolutely deserve to have access to safe, high-quality housing here in the city of Tempe. And the last thing I'll say before going to Vice Mayor Garland is, this is just sort of one more leg in that overall stool. I remember back in January of 2021 when we first passed the Hometown for All program, and there were some folks who said, well, this sounds great, like this sounds like a really positive step forward, but I don't think this is going to do everything to solve the affordable housing and supply crisis that we have here in the city of Tempe and throughout the valley. And back then I remember us talking about Hometown for All in of itself. That specific program was not just simply about creating one dedicated revenue stream. It was one process or one leg in that stool, and the council was going to continue to work on other ways to increase the supply of affordable housing in our community. We obviously had the bond that got nearly 70% of the vote this past November from Tempe voters, which will give us $32 million over the next 4 years to frankly spend to create more much-needed affordable housing. But obviously now, too, with a density bonus program on top of that bond and on top of the Hometown for All program, it's not just simply one program that actually solves all of these issues. It's all of these things stacked up together that gets us really to where we need to be. So I'm really very, very happy about this, looking forward to seeing what the public input is for members of our community, but I think these are all very much positive steps in the right direction. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I love this. I know I've been asking to learn more about this and have this brought back to us for a really long time. I love this plan. And as the mayor said, I think it's another option that we have for affordable housing. We talk about it, and now we're doing something additional. I think this is really important. I also think it's important for us to do something like that that's also keeping local control for making sure that we make these decisions in the city of Tempe for our residents, because we know what we want in our city, and other people don't. So I really appreciate that. And again, I think it's one great additional option. I have one question though. Why is on slide 19 when it talks about what the details will be in the contract, why is this not in perpetuity instead of 30 years? I mean, it's 30 years. Why isn't it in perpetuity?
Good question. when we evaluated this request and looked at other development incentives, like some of our development agreement programs, was 30 years was the maximum basis typically that was asked for in these requirements. We can certainly look at longer time periods, or if an incentive for perpetuity is a viable option to consider, we can certainly evaluate that.
I
and
appreciate that,
compare in
'cause
other cities.
I look at that as that they are getting the additional building height or additional whatever that they are requesting, and they get it forever. It just seems to me that the equal should be that we have the affordable housing at the same time, the same length. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hodge, then Councilmember Amberg.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues. This is a great step in the right direction. My question is probably more about when we go out for discussion, to make sure that we have the right people in the rooms. Like, make sure that we do bring some teachers, police officers, firemen. We do bring people from the restaurant industry in, because talking to just the common person who already owns a home or already at home, we're not really getting the feel of what's going to happen. So I just just hope that we bring in the people who are going to be mostly affected by it, especially when it goes into the population of the last one, the seeking of the restaurant owners and the people who have the lowest part of the income. Want to make sure that they have their input in and their buy-in to what's happening in the city.
Thank you.
And my last question, I know we're talking about density, but how is this affecting like ADUs if people want to do it and get kind of the same kind of feel for it, if they're going to do affordable housing or sort of some kind of
Yeah.
lower income on it too?
A good question, Councilmember Hodge. This density bonus program is a little bit different in that, typically this might be a project that's an infill development, missing middle housing development, where you're working on a smaller piece of land. The ADUs are primarily beneficial to those property owners or homeowners that have existing property today, that maybe they feel like they want to invest in their property, have an ADU that they can offer for the community for supplemental rental income. This one's more for kind of those, smaller development projects that can take advantage of an infill opportunity for redevelopment. That is, like we said, in concert with the general plan's projected land use density.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Amberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, I think this program sounds great. I guess my question is, is it being utilized anywhere else? Like, are we the first people to ever think about this? Is this being done in any other Arizona cities, any other cities around the United States? And if so, are people actually using it? Because, this is a lot of work to go through and develop a program like this that's just never going to be utilized.
Good question. We've had a lot of conversations, both locally and on the statewide initiative efforts. We know the state is heavily interested on introducing forward new state legislature for affordable housing programs. So we hope this could be a potential model effort to kind of influence what that outcome could be, because to adopt an ordinance that maybe contradicts what your regulations are, this is the best way to do it in concert with the general plan, the land use guidelines, as a guideline to affect those changes for those locations. We haven't had a specific development site or a specific city modeled after this as an example, but we'll certainly look into that to find out if there have been others that have done it this way. But there have been
Kind of on
several
the
cities that have
forefront.
density bonus increases just by established percentages.
So we're kind of on the forefront of this then, is what you're
Possibly.
saying.
Possibly.
All right. Councilmember Hodge.
I guess that would be a follow-up, maybe even with Jonathan right there, who can go back to this, to find out if this has been talked about within our city, within our state, or even in the country.
We'll certainly be looking to get his feedback
And
as
if
well.
we
on
do,
this,
and
yeah.
we are at the forefront, then maybe that's a session we need to be doing at the next, not this year, but next year when we get it kind of moving.
No, I would say, Councilmember Hodge, I appreciate those comments, because, the fact of the matter is what you and Councilmember Amberg are talking about is, we have a regional challenge when it comes to housing affordability and housing supply. It's not just simply a Tempe issue, it's something throughout Maricopa County and frankly, throughout the entire state of Arizona. And I really do think that it is imperative that everyone in the region does their part when thinking about things like this, whether it's talking about housing affordability, whether it's talking about density bonus programs, or trying to find ways to allow for certain parcels to be kind of zoned in sort of in a by right kind of fashion so people can build what they need to build so we can actually meet our housing goals. But as we said, I mean, it's not just simply a Tempe issue. It's a regional issue that I think frankly, all of our cities and towns need to step up and actually take heed of. But at the end of the day, I'm very, very excited about the fact that our council and our staff are trying really to meet this problem head on. So thank you. Anything else? Yes, Chair Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks for the presentation. I think reducing the focus to this one area is very important so that you can get some movement on it. I love the path of communication for looking at example projects, providing that as a method of communicating this, because it's a little difficult. I mean, there's a lot of data, a lot of numbers in here. So giving those examples and also examples of the R6. I did have a question on the scenarios that you painted for us. Are those are basically looking at projects that are equal, and I don't know if I hope I can figure out how to explain this. It would be a project that would have these allowable additional density, additional height, and you're looking at what they would, the income they would get without a reduction in rents versus what they would get with a reduction in rents. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it was able to just look at an example of, say, a 20-unit product that had both studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms.
But it had the allowances on top of it already. So I think what I was confusing me is that an accurate reflection of what a developer would be considering? And should they look at something without those built-in, those incentives applied versus something with those incentives applied? And look at the numbers.
You're right.
Does that make sense?
We should probably have some case study scenarios with applying those density bonuses and affordabilities, and then what is the affordability rate for that specific case example? Yeah, and in the case what we were talking about is we were trying to achieve more dedicated affordable housing units with the 80% AMI versus the 50% would probably offer less number of dedicated units, but because there is a value difference, right, of how much that cost savings is between those ranges.
Right.
Something we'll have to show or demonstrate. You're
okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Commissioner Miller.
First of all, thank you very much. This is a very good first step, and I emphasize first step. I have a comment, and it appears that what you're focusing on are multifamily and apartments, which are going to be essentially occupied by renters. Is that more or less correct?
For the most part, yes.
Which is good, because rental properties are a positive, and we're building an awful lot of them right now. My concern is, though, that we are ignoring the significant lack of affordable single-family housing, either detached or attached townhomes and so on and so forth, that might be more something that a young couple, perhaps with a child, are looking for, and also happen to fall into this economic situation because of their careers and such. It's important that we do something to include those people, because those are going to be the backbone of this community going forward. Renters are transients for the most part. They're going to be here for a year, maybe 2. Some of them will stay longer, but a lot of them are going to move on, or they're going to want to find a home in the community. And if we don't have something that addresses that, there's going to be no way for these people to get on that first rung of the wealth building ladder that is so important in addition to that, they're going to bring children here, which are going to increase the need for our schools, which right now are losing children. So I think that we're really, we have to start looking at that as well. And I think that by doing that, and you can increase density in those areas as well. I mean, four units per acre for a lot of residential. Well, downsize the lot, make it 6, make it more affordable, things like that. I'd like to see, I would like to see something like that brought back to us as well, which also, by the way, ties into the fact that one of the city's goals is to minimize the heat index that we see going on. Building 20 and 30-story apartment buildings with a lot of concrete does nothing to mitigate that. In fact, it exacerbates it. And so I think that if we can address some of those concerns as well, then this goes a long way to actually pushing us even further down the road for, to affordable housing. And I think we'd be doing a great service to not only the community as it is now, but also to the residents of the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I do want to clarify, I think even though we're focused on multifamily zoning areas, and typically that usually results in a rental property, we do still have the opportunity to look at the framework of this program for those multifamily zonings that could produce a fee simple product, townhome design within those density ranges too. So that's something we're also considering. It's just, it would be a different form of agreement, because now you're dealing with a property owner agreement. How does that property requirement transfer to a future owner? Something we have to look into a little bit more. But we're certainly looking into that from the perspective of ownership opportunities as well.
Can I have just one quick follow-up? I didn't hear anything about amenities or increased amenities, increased shade spaces, increased green areas and such. Would there be a way to incorporate those as well? Because again, we come back to making it more attractive, making it more accessible, but also mitigating the heat that we're generating. I mean, it's not getting any cooler here.
Yeah, all those elements are focused on when we do our design review process, so making sure that we've got adequate open space, amenity elements. Those type of standards and design review processes are incorporated when we are reviewing the development plan for what's being presented. So yes, those can be considered and enhanced in the future as well.
I was just going to say, could we incentivize them as well when we're looking at this?
We'll look into that.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Either council members, commissioners? All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation.
All right. Now we got the next item.
Brings me item 2B, state legislation updates, and it looks like it's still Ryan and Jeff.
Still this Jeff and Ryan party. So the first item I want to introduce to you is the adoption of House Bill 2110. This is actually an amendment to a prior House bill from last year, House Bill 2297, which was the introduction of commercial buildings adaptive reuse to multifamily development program. This new House bill was adopted by emergency clause and has retroactivity. Basically, it could apply to those applications that may have been applied for since January 1 of the prior House bill. And essentially it'll be effective by July 7th. So we're kind of in a rush to get this text amendment updated, but we'll be certainly honoring this process if we have an applicant come forward that in the meantime. These code changes have to do with a lot of cleanup to prior interpretations of how other cities were introducing it into their areas. For the code, the provision used to require that minimum amounts of commercial lots be eligible for adaptive use up to 10%. The city of Tempe adopted 10%. Some cities, for example, only adopted 1% of their commercial areas eligible for this. So this is a change in the House bill now to say, no, cities, we're not talking about 1%, we're talking about at least 10% of those areas to be dedicated eligible for the commercial. So they want that as the baseline standpoint for this program. This change also results in a recalculation of how we conduct commercial eligible sites. Used to be based on the total number of commercial buildings. Now it's based on commercial lots. So kind of a recalibration of how many numbers are affected by their citywide. Likely those numbers will decrease, so we have to evaluate those percentages to be in line with the 10% number threshold that we've proposed. Will also result in changes to the exclusionary threshold. There's set aside exclusion of up to 10% areas that we think that we want to protect or keep in place that doesn't include the addition of conversion of commercial to residential. Those have been identified on our maps, and we'll have to reevaluate those to make sure that we're not violating that new 10% threshold of lots instead of buildings. Airport exclusion area, which primarily has to do with day and night contours of decibel levels of either 60 or 65. The original adoption had a 60 DNL contour exception, and now it's been clarified to utilize the more standardized 65 DNL contour line, which will have a little bit less impact on our areas of the city. We also need to now include mixed-use districts when evaluating similar heights and densities for an area, which the adoption of this provision allows properties within a 1 mile radius to, for example, get certain similar height and similar density. That could also apply to the mixed-use districts as well. So if, say, for example, some of those Apache Boulevard development sites that might be either south or north of that area, someone could be eligible for adaptive reuse that matches those similar densities and heights. There's a limitation, a 2-story height limitation next to single family within a 100-foot restriction area of the property. This meant at the time that any properties within 100 feet would not be eligible for any other height other than 2 stories. They've now clarified this to mean that it's intended to be a 100-foot buffer zone rather than a restriction. So if your property is within 100 feet of a residential single-family area, you limit that area of the site to no more than 2 stories. But you could have property beyond that that could be 3 or 4 stories in height. So it's clarification in how they intended to apply this buffer zone with height limitation. As well, there's some changes in the definitions for low-income and moderate-income housing. There's a requirement that they have to dedicate 10% of that area median income, and that ranges from 80 to 120. So we're developing a draft code text amendment that will quickly see you guys hopefully in June and July, and with a wrap-up of August hearing to get this formally adopted. Questions on this one?
Councilmember Bramberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't a question so much as me getting on my soapbox, because everybody up here knows how annoyed that I am at the state legislature for trying to come in and tell us what we shouldn't be doing with code. This is a perfect example of why they shouldn't. They messed up some stuff last year because they have no idea what they're doing. And yes, I'm going on record as saying this. They have no idea what they're doing, and now they're coming back and fixing some problems. I'm sure we'll probably be doing this every year, and we're going to have
House
to change
cleaning.
our stuff because they keep changing their stuff. Thank you.
Yes, unfortunately, we're having to do some house cleaning, yes.
I don't know if I can follow that. Councilmember Bramberg? Anyone else? No? Okay.
All right, this next House bill item, which has been adopted and signed by the governor as well, under House Bill 2447, Administrative Review and Approval Self-Certification Program. If you recall, this was a few years back. This initiative was brought forward to help encourage cities, municipalities to allow greater opportunities for administrative review processes. Those processes typically included how to streamline the subdivision planning process, ways to streamline administrative approvals for design review. And so they developed this framework within the code, within ARS 9-400.49, that allowed the option that the cities may incorporate into their provisions. And at the time the city took advantage of it. We expanded our subdivision plat process to make more administrative approvals. We expanded our administrative design review up to 5,000 square feet for new development. And those were changes that we enacted. This year now, There's just one simple change word of striking out may and then now adding shall, which has the effect of now requiring cities, municipalities, to have a completely administrative process for all forms of subdivision platting, lot combinations, and requires all forms of design review, both development plans, site plan approval, to be an administrative process. Meaning, without public hearings, without public meetings, we can't take those items forward in a public fashion that you might typically find in your typical DRC hearing date. This does impact the DRC, it does impact the city council and what they see from a combination of application components brought forward. This mandate does go in effect as of January 1st of 2026. There are potential some options we've been discussing with the attorney's office that might give us ability to maybe give an applicant an option to include that design component with like an extensive PAD or zoning process, just so that they could get it approved all at the same time. But we're required to make these processes, say for example, that city might be having to review administratively a high-rise building without a public hearing or public meeting process. It was intended, this bill appears to be very intentional to take out public input, public process from this review period. There are still potentials for appeals. Appeals will still happen from city staff to Development Review Commission and DRC appeals to city council. So we've got to do a cleanup of our code, look at and evaluate where changes need to occur. Still looking at, like we said, some options that would afford an applicant to bring those elements on forward to the city council and those processes. Most likely what you'll see in your packages now might have more conceptual or illustrative elevations of the renderings and projects. And what I'd say to you guys is you want to make sure that what they're showing, what you guys are approving from a PD or zoning standpoint is what they're actually saying they're going to get approved from a design review standpoint. So imageries, examples of their projects have to, surely be closely evaluated to make sure is that what we're reviewing to approve for the request. The self-certification process is still an option for municipalities. It's not being mandated. And this happens at the building safety end for registered architects. There is another cleanup element to this one, which is just mandated to clarify that this now proposed House bill, which is cleaning up an old House bill, that properties of historic districts with designated local government or National Register places are exempt from this process. So if you have a Historic Preservation Commission, they're still basically able to do design review for those historic properties that have a review of additions or modifications to those properties. They did ask to clarify, and they did even tried to put in, can we get an exception for design review boards? And they said, no. It was fully intentional to remove design review out of that public meeting, public hearing process, unfortunately. So we'll be coming back to you all before the end of the year to wrap up this text amendment that, whether you like it or not, it's coming forward.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Yes, Commissioner Miller.
I just have one quick question. Have you asked the city attorney about what the risk management implications of this might be for city employees who go ahead and make their now mandated decisions, completely objectively, of course?
Mr. Anderson? I don't know how much you're allowed to answer of that, but he did say the city attorney, of which I am not him.
Thank you, Mayor. Just generally speaking, every situation is going to turn on its own facts, but there are certain in the state legislation immunities that are generally associated with plan approval and things like that. So those would apply, I believe. I haven't seen the attempt to preempt that. So those are found in a different section of the law. So I don't see any reason those wouldn't continue to apply in the same fashion. So there's generally qualified immunity, as we call it. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, commissioners, council? Okay. Thank you. All right, that brings me to item number 3, future meeting topics. Do any members of the council or any commissioners have any future meeting topics they'd like to speak about now? All right. Seeing none, I'll move on to item number 4, upcoming meetings. 4A, Monday, October 20th, 2025 at 4 p.m., location right here at the Tempe History Museum in the Community Room, 809 East Southern Avenue, of course, here in Tempe. And then next up, 4B, would be the next meeting on Monday, June 8th, 2026 at 4 p.m. right here again at the Tempe History Museum in the Community Room, once again, at 809 East Southern Avenue here in Tempe. With that said, with there being no further business, we are adjourned at 4:56 p.m. Thank you, council, and thank you, commissioners, as well, for your service. We're adjourned.